The Autistic Culture Podcast Network, the sound of autistic culture. ATPN.
Who knew Walmart Business could help a thriving office motivate their employees? Pamela knew. She uses Walmart Business to get the assortment of items her team needs at the prices she loves.
As the office manager, it's my job to make sure my team stays on top of their game. I can get the basics like cleaning supplies and paper towels, but what they really care about, snacks.
And she can get everything they need when they need it.
Greg loves wheat crackers, Brenda craves sour candy, and Max, oh boy, he needs protein bars and milk and applesauce
It's Walmart,
and jerky.
built for your business. Who knew?
Welcome, dear friends, to Mindful Mondays. That sacred weekly pause where we soften into presence, ground into our bodies, and remember what it feels like to come home to ourselves. Right here on the Neurodivergent Experience podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Dupuy, and today feels like a threshold moment. Episode 26. Exactly half a year since that first Monday, September the 8th, 2025, when we stepped tentatively into this shared space together. And what began as quiet morning reflections for the neurodivergent soul has unfolded into something far more alive, far more coherent, a living, breathing map. Not a rigid checklist of self-improvement hacks or a hurried race towards transformation, but a gentle map, hand-drawn through experiments with presence, forest wisdom, nervous system cartography, heart-opening meta, breakthrough frameworks, and the quiet alchemy of gratitude and sensory awakening. So today's episode isn't merely a retrospective. It's a hearth fire gathering. You and I sitting together across these past 6 months and tracing with tenderness what has emerged organically when we dared to meet life exactly as it is, especially when your nervous system feels the world in higher volume and deeper texture and more vivid intensity. 6 eras wove themselves without force these past 6 months. Foundations of presence, nature as teacher and healer, the nervous system's native language, December's radical compassion, January's breakthrough architecture, and February's resilient momentum. And something extraordinary reveals itself when we step back. This wasn't random. We haven't just been exploring beautiful ideas. We've been building something neurodivergent nervous systems desperately need. A map that honors your sensitivity and your pattern-seeking depth and your capacity for profound inner shifts. A map that says, you don't need fixing. You need understanding. And you need language for what you feel. You need safety before strategy. And today, I want to reflect that map back to you so that you can see what you've been co-creating all along. So we began exactly where any meaningful mindful journey must, at the root of presence itself. In episode 1, the power of presence and radical acceptance met us in the raw reality of overwhelm. And we spoke of the Buddhist metaphor, the double arrow. That first arrow of pain. That could be a sensory flood or emotional intensity or executive function collision. That first arrow lands hard enough for neurodivergent nervous systems. But then comes the second arrow. That's the self-judgment, the inner critic whispering, you should handle this better. What if we could let the first arrow land without piling on the second arrow of suffering? What if presence meant holding space for exactly what is, rather than what should be? And from there, we moved into time and softened it. Time blindness reframed not as a defect, but as a mind wired for depth rather than clock chasing. That relentless internal hurry-up voice recognized for what it is, a nervous system on high alert. And we began experimenting with rhythm instead of urgency, listening to internal cadence rather than external pressure. And then we noticed the language running through so many of our inner narratives. I should. I have to. I must. For conscientious, pattern-seeking, sensitive minds, those words become invisible chains. And so we practiced a quieter inner alchemy, shifting into I could, or I choose, or I get to. Not to deny responsibility, but to return agency to the nervous system. And then we reimagined structure itself, routines not as rigid prisons, but as gentle architecture. Scaffolding steady enough to hold decision fatigue, and soft enough to bend when life shifts, and infused with play, so that structure nourishes rather than depletes. Those first 4 episodes were foundational. They were soil preparation. Because without safety, nothing roots. Without presence, nothing transforms. And that was the ground from which everything else grew. These were the roots, drinking deep from presence itself. And when I think back to October, I don't think of episodes. I think of air, of walking, and wind, and trees. That month called us outdoors. And for many neurodivergent nervous systems, that is where regulation feels most instinctive, before theory or language or frameworks. The body often knows what the mind is still trying to articulate. And we explored how nature quite literally changes our chemistry, how movement lifts dopamine, how grounding shifts serotonin, how awe releases oxytocin, and how fresh air and rhythm awaken endorphins. And modern neuroscience is simply catching up to something ancient. The natural world is medicine for the nervous system. And then autumn deepened the lesson. Trees shedding leaves became more than seasonal change. They became living demonstrations of impermanence, not as loss, but as transformation. Every ending loosening its grip so that renewal has somewhere to land. And here where I am on the Isle of Man, the elements themselves became teachers. Gale force winds that bend without breaking, and tides that move in rhythm, whether we resist them or not, and stars that widen perspective. And resilience revealed not as toughness, but as flexibility. But it was in the forest, in episode 7, in that quiet meditation inspired by the late spiritual teacher Ram Dass, that something truly foundational emerged. Ram Dass famously offered us the most exquisite metaphor. When you walk amongst the trees in a forest, you simply allow them. Crooked trunks, scars from storms, branches leaning toward whatever light they could find. And you don't judge them. You don't ask them to be different. And yet, the moment we turn toward ourselves or turn towards other humans, that allowing collapses. Comparison begins, and measurement begins, and self-surveillance begins. And for so many of us who are neurodivergent, that inner surveillance becomes a lifelong background hum of, am I too much or too slow, too intense, too sensitive? Episode 7, The Forest of Allowing, invited something radical and simple. What if you approached yourself and others the way you approach a tree? What if the scar in the bark is evidence of survival? And what if the branch that bends is not weakness, but wisdom? Nature did not give us instructions. It simply mirrored us back to ourselves. You are allowed, not improved, not edited, allowed. And from there, the work moved inward. November wasn't abstract neuroscience. It was intimate cartography. We mapped the polyvagal ladder within, the states of safety, activation, and shutdown that shape every reaction, every tone of voice, every decision. And for sensory-rich nervous systems processing enormous volumes of data, understanding state is not optional. It's orientation. And we explored the breath, that extraordinary bridge between the voluntary and involuntary, the one doorway into the autonomic system that we can gently guide. Science and mysticism meeting in the same breath. And we returned home to the body, widening our gaze and shaking stress out like animals in the wild, and stimming as rhythm rather than pathology. The body quietly reminding us, this is the way back. And then we stood in one of the most revealing insights of the entire series. Your brain is always moving between two modes of knowing. The left hemisphere asking what is, and the right hemisphere imagining what could be. And between them, a story forms, a predictive story. Your brain does not experience reality directly. It predicts how to interact with it. And for neurodivergent minds, extraordinary pattern recognizers, those predictions can become deeply convincing. If I don't mask, I'll be rejected. If I speak honestly, I'll lose connection. Or if I rest, I'll fall behind. And those aren't just thoughts. They are neural maps. And when we learned to witness the story without collapsing into it, something opened, a tiny space. And in that space, regulation became possible. Soften the story, soften the system. November gave us a language for intensity. It gave context to reactions that once felt personal or shameful. It showed us that safety is not silencing sensitivity. It is understanding its architecture. And by December, the work had grown tender. The holidays amplifying everything, especially for neurodivergent nervous systems. Sensory load increases, and social expectations swell, and old relational patterns reawaken. It felt important then to return to compassion, not as sentiment, but as intervention. Loving kindness meditation was not theoretical for me. It was something I clung to during a winter of isolation and burnout. Breathing golden warmth into the heart, offering safety inward first. And what is so beautiful is that this ancient practice is now measurable. Oxytocin rises, and vagal tone strengthens, and the heart sends signals of safety to the brain. Compassion regulates. And radical permission followed naturally. Permission to leave early. Permission to decline without explaining. Permission to disappoint someone and still be safe. Releasing the exhausting cycle of justify, argue, defend, and explain. And then came self-love. Not as indulgence, but as foundation. Because change cannot grow in soil made of self-criticism. Acceptance is not the opposite of transformation. It is the condition that allows it. So December did not demand that we survive harder. It invited us to soften deeper. And from that softness, January unfolded with clarity. We looked at the architecture of change, state, story, and strategy, in that order. Because most people begin with strategy, the new plan, the new rules, the new discipline, and when it collapses, they assume failure. But if the nervous system is dysregulated, strategy will always feel brittle. If you attend to your state and loosen the story, strategy naturally begins to flow. So we explored how beliefs are threads, not permanent truths. How adding one small phrase, and something else may also be true, can loosen a rigid pattern. How upward spirals form not by fighting the old, but by building the new. And this wasn't motivational rhetoric. It was biological respect. The issue is rarely the issue. And once you understand that, change becomes less punishing and far more intuitive. And then capacity began to expand. February didn't introduce something new. It deepened what was already emerging. Resilience became movement between squeeze and release. Flexibility rather than force. Growth mindset became a nervous system safe reframing, not forced positivity. And gratitude became attentional training, recalibrating the reticular activating system so that the mind doesn't scan just for threat. And then we turn toward the senses. Sound is regulation and sound is overwhelm. Sensitivity not as flaw, but as instrumentation. So for neurodivergent systems, the world can feel loud. But amplification is not weakness. It is data. It is texture. It is richness. And slowly, the larger pattern began to reveal itself. So when we step back from all of this, from the forests and the ladders and the breath, the heart coherence, breakthrough frameworks and sound waves, we begin to see coherence. We have been building a map together. A map that honors your nervous system before asking it to perform. A map that understands your story before attempting to rewrite it. A map that roots change and compassion. And a map that recognizes sensitivity as a strength. This was never random. It was layered. Presence, allowing, regulation, narrative awareness, compassion, permission, breakthrough, resilience, attention, and sensation. Each month adding contour, each episode adding orientation, and you have been walking it with me. And you are now carrying something embodied. You understand your state. You can soften your story, and you can design strategy from safety. You can work with your senses instead of fighting them. And this next chapter continues that unfolding. All through March, we'll be exploring more of our senses, light, movement, touch, and more, so you can weave more sensory threads into the map. And if you wish to go deeper between episodes, my Insight Timer channel holds longer nervous system practice, courses, yoga nidras, and immersive journeys designed specifically for beautifully complex neurodivergent minds. But for now, let's pause and let's feel how much ground we've covered. 6 months together. The map is still unfolding. And as a small gift to mark this milestone, I want to offer a guided practice that weaves together 3 practices that have shaped this journey from the last 6 months. The forest of allowing, the weaver of stories, and loving kindness. All woven into one extended journey. It feels like the most fitting way to mark where we are. Something that brings this map into your body, not just your mind. But before we do, I want to thank you for listening, for reflecting, for thinking deeply, for showing up for your own nervous system in a world that rarely teaches you how. 6 months in, and this is only the beginning. So if you are currently driving or operating heavy machinery, please ensure to pause the recording now until you can safely come back into stillness. And just allow yourself to find a comfortable position. You can be sitting or lying down, ensuring you are nice and warm and fully supported. And whenever you're ready, feel free to gently close your eyes. Just allow the body to settle in whatever position feels most supportive for you right now. There is nowhere to get to, nothing to achieve, nothing to improve. Just this moment and the quiet space you have created inside it. And take a slow breath in through your nose and a gentle, unhurried exhale through the mouth. And again, inhaling in through the nose and exhaling with a gentle sigh through the mouth. Letting your shoulders drop, letting your jaw soften, letting gravity hold you. Good, that's right. And can you imagine now that you are standing at the edge of a forest? It is a familiar forest. You have walked here before. And the air is warm and steady. And the light filters through tall branches in soft golden strands. And you step onto a path. And immediately you notice something. The trees. Some are tall and straight, and some are bent by the wind. Some are scarred, some are hollowed. Some are newly budding, and some are shedding. And not one of them apologizes. Not one of them strains to be different. They simply are. And you walk slowly. And as you pass each tree, you notice how instinctively you allow it. You do not think that one should be straighter, or that one should be taller, or that one is flawed. You see it, you accept it, and you move on. And something inside you recognizes this truth. The forest works because everything is allowed. And you pause here. And you let that land. The forest works because everything is allowed. And as you continue walking, You notice one tree that draws your attention, and you step closer. This tree feels familiar. You look at its bark, its shape, its lean toward the light, and you notice its knots, its curves, its weathering. This tree carries history. Storms it has endured, seasons it has survived, growth it didn't even realize it was making. And slowly, gently, you realize this tree is you. Not perfect or symmetrical or identical to any other, but rooted, living, still reaching. And you place your palm against its trunk and whisper inwardly, I am allowed to be as I am. And let your nervous system hear that. Not as an affirmation, but a remembering. I am allowed. And feel the exhale that follows. As you step back from the tree, the path opens into a clearing. And at the center stands a loom. Old wood. Steady. Patient. And beside it sits the weaver. But this time, something is different. You don't feel like a visitor. You recognize them. This weaver is the quiet part of you that has always been observing. The part that can see your stories without being swallowed by them. The part that has been here all along. And you look down at your shoulders, and you notice a cloak draped there, threaded with words, moments, memories, beliefs. Too sensitive. Not enough. Try harder. Stay small. Be useful. Don't disappoint. Some threads are warm, and some constrict, and others feel heavy. There is no judgment here, only noticing. The weaver doesn't rush forward, doesn't rip anything away. Instead, they place a small golden spindle in your hands. And then you realize you are not here to tear the cloak apart. You are here to reweave it. Bringing your awareness now to the center of your chest, your heart space. And imagine a soft golden glow there. Warm, steady, ancient. And with each inhale, this golden light brightens slightly. And with each exhale, it spreads gently through your ribs, your shoulders, your spine, This is the quiet warmth of being alive. The love that does not need witnesses. The love that regulates. The love that says, you are safe enough to soften. And with your next breath, imagine a single golden thread extending from your heart into your hands. Soft, strong, unbreakable. And now look again at the cloak and choose one thread that feels heavy. Not the most painful, just one. And gently, without force, begin weaving golden thread alongside it, not replacing or denying, just weaving beside it. Where there was, I always get it wrong, you can weave in, I am learning. And where there was, I am too much, you can weave in, my depth is part of my design. And where there was, I have to earn belonging, you can weave in, I belong as I am. You are not erasing your past. You are updating your map, thread by thread, breath by breath. And feel how the cloak changes, subtly, becoming more breathable, more spacious, more alive. And now let the golden light in your heart expand, speaking silently inwardly. May I feel safe in my own nervous system. May my story soften where it is ready. May I trust the pace of my becoming. And may I rest inside my own life. And again, may I feel safe. May my story soften. May I trust my pace. May I rest. And let those words ripple through your body. And finally, imagine the forest expanding. Trees upon trees, cloaks upon cloaks, stories layered across humanity. And from your heart, let the golden thread ripple outward. May all beings feel safe enough to soften. May all stories evolve toward kindness. May all nervous systems find moments of rest. May we reweave this world with compassion. And just let that settle. And the clearing begins to fade gently, but the loom remains. The weaver remains. The forest remains. And you now understand something you didn't before. The map is not fixed. It is living. And you are both the walker and the cartographer. Take a slow breath in and exhale slowly, bringing awareness to your body, the surface beneath you, and the room around you. You are here. The cloak rests lightly on your shoulders. The golden thread remains in your heart. And whenever you forget, you can return. You can allow. You can reweave. And you can love. And when you're ready, and not a moment before, you can feel free to gently open your eyes. As we come to the end of this very special episode, I just want to pause for a moment. 6 months ago, this was simply an idea, a hope that there might be space for something gentle, intelligent, and deeply affirming the neurodivergent experience. And here we are, 26 episodes later. What moves me most is that this hasn't been something I've built alone. You've been here, listening and reflecting, practicing and returning. Every time you softened a story, every time you noticed your state before reacting, and every time you chose compassion over criticism, you were co-weaving this map. This has never been about me teaching you something you didn't already carry. It's been about remembering together, about tracing the contours of your own nervous system with curiosity instead of judgment, about recognizing that your sensitivity is not an error in design. It's part of the instrumentation. So thank you. Thank you for your depth and your thoughtfulness, and for walking this path with me. And if you'd like to continue exploring between episodes, my Insight Timer channel holds a growing library of longer nervous system practices, courses in yoga nidras, regulation journeys, bedtime alchemy, all created specifically for beautifully complex, high-volume nervous systems like yours. It's there whenever you need a deeper dive or a softer landing. And next week, we continue this unfolding exploration of our beautifully sensitive senses. We'll be turning our attention to light, how it shapes mood and energy, circadian rhythm and focus, how it can heal or dysregulate, and how we can work with light intentionally for better health, regulation, and presence. Because the map is still expanding, and your sensitivity is still revealing its wisdom. Until next Monday, be gentle with your nervous system. Trust your pace. You are allowed, you are learning, and you are beautifully, intricately designed. I'll see you next week, and remember, we are all just walking each other home.
Who knew Walmart Business could help a thriving office motivate their employees? Pamela knew. She uses Walmart Business to get the assortment of items her team needs at the prices she loves.
As the office manager, it's my job to make sure my team stays on top of their game. I can get the basics like cleaning supplies and paper towels, but what they really care about, snacks.
And she can get everything they need when they need it.
Greg loves wheat crackers, Brenda craves sour candy, and Max, oh boy, he needs protein bars and milk and applesauce
It's
and
Walmart,
jerky.
built for your business. Who knew?
Thanks for listening. Support autistic-led media through Autistic Culture Plus and enjoy bonus content, early episodes, and ad-free listening. Visit autisticculture.supercast.com to learn more.